Welcome to another wonderful Susanna Calloway audiobook. We are excited to have you with us. Before we begin the story, please like and subscribe to our channel and share it with friends. This allows us to continue adding free, clean Western romance audiobooks for you to enjoy. The following title is copyrighted by Susanna Calloway, Western romance author. Now, find a comfortable spot, relax, and enjoy the story. The Fiancee's Friend. Chapter 1. Packing the last of her belongings into satchels and boxes, Jenny straightened, stretching her back. Glancing around at the house she had been born in, mostly empty now save for a few pieces of furniture she agreed would remain for the new owners, she felt as though she should weep. But she knew her time for weeping was now over. During her father's long illness, his death, his funeral, she had wept countless tears. Through the sale of this very house, she had paid off her father's debts. However, it left her with no home, no family, and no place to go. Her fingers in her pocket toyed with the little money that remained to her, a mere $30 she must hoard for emergencies. Not very much when it may have to last me a long time. Her soul as dry as her eyes, Jenny reminded herself that this house was just that, a house. Her father was in heaven with her mother, no doubt happy and free from the pain and suffering he endured for the last few years. If I marry Wesley, then I will have another house, and one I can call my own. Jenny? She glanced up at the sound of Martha's voice. In here, she called. Martha Andrews, a slender woman her own age of 23, with ash blonde hair and a clear complexion, entered the bedroom where Jenny stood over her belongings. Are you ready? She asked. Harold is outside, ready to help carry your things. Jenny frowned at the sight of the welt and bruising around Martha's left eye. Did he hit you again? Lifting her hand to her eye, Martha tried a smile, and Jenny recognized the falseness of it. Well, he has a temper. I didn't cook his breakfast right. Jenny tugged on her braid of dark hair. It's always something, isn't it? You look at him wrong, and he hits you. It's wrong and I don't like it. Martha glanced away, a flush turning her cheeks a dull pink. I had no idea he was like this before I married him, she said, her voice small. He seemed so kind and so considerate before. I hope Wesley doesn't prove to be that way, Jenny said. Has he asked you to marry him? Sitting down on the bare mattress on the bed, Jenny sighed. Not yet. We are still talking through letters. Martha sat beside her and took her hand, squeezing it. If he does, then you'll leave me. You are the only thing that keeps me going, Jenny. Wrapping her arms around her best friend, Jenny hugged her, holding her close. I know. I am so sorry, Martha. I can only live with you for so long. And you and Harold giving me a place to stay, well, I am truly grateful. But we both know how he is. And I know he can't be happy having me come. It's the least I can do. Martha smiled at her. But you're right. Harold isn't exactly happy about it. He has been grousing and complaining since I told him you had nowhere to go. I don't want to be a burden on you, Jenny began. You won't be. Harold will get used to it in time, trust me. As though speaking his name summoned him, Martha's husband, Harold, stuck his head in the door. Jenny always thought him an ugly man, and his perpetual scowl accentuated that aspect of him. Under a mop of curly brown hair, his narrow muddy eyes stared at her, his thin lips razor tight. What are you two doing? He snapped. Stop lollygagging and let's go. I'm not waiting all day. Grabbing a box and a satchel, he stormed out, leaving Jenny to stare and Martha to sigh. I'm sorry, Martha said, rising. She picked up a satchel and headed toward the door. I really don't want him any crankier than he already is. I don't either. Seizing the last two boxes of her possessions, Jenny took one last look around at what had once been her home. The new owners would be taking possession of it later in the day, and she had cleaned it for them, leaving it spotless. Resolutely, she turned her back on all her memories and on this place that had sheltered her for years and walked out, closing the door behind her. While Martha waited for her on the front stoop, Harold was already halfway down the narrow lane, stalking furiously toward their home a few blocks away. Both Jenny and Martha had grown up in this small town of Tidewater, Virginia, and had been best friends since childhood. Martha married Harold the previous year, and Jenny had stood up for her at their wedding. It was not until after they had been married a few months that Harold showed his true colors by smacking his new bride across her face. Jenny knew he beat her regularly, with any excuse imaginable. But since she did not get along with her family, Martha had no place to go if she tried to leave him. And because Harold made a decent wage working at a sawmill, Martha made the best of it, and endured him for the sake of a roof over her head and food on the table. Jenny had done her best trying to convince Martha to leave, but to no avail. "What is the latest from Wesley?" Martha asked as they walked slowly, carrying their burdens. "His last letter was 2 weeks ago," Jenny replied. "I hoped there might be a new one waiting for me at the train station. But he said he was well, and hoped I was. Of course, I wrote and told him of Pa passing, but he didn't reply with an offer to have me move to Arkansas." "Arkansas," Martha mused. "It's so far away." "Yes, it is." Jenny smiled a little. "But he seems so kind, Martha. His letters are so sweet, and it's clear he's intelligent. I am almost falling in love with him without even meeting him." "Is that possible?" "I dare say it is," Jenny replied, laughing. "Because it's happening to me." "Then I'd think he'd have feelings for you, as well," Martha said. "You have been corresponding for what? 3 or 4 months now?" "Yes, almost 5. So why hasn't he asked you to marry him?" "You found each other through the mail-order bride agency, so he clearly wants to find a wife. We both know you'd make a wonderful wife and mother." Jenny tried to shrug under the weight of her burden. "I believe he is just being cautious," she answered. "I cannot blame him, for I am, too. Marriage is a huge step, and not something to be taken lightly. It's not easy to undo it once it's done, as you so well know." "I do know." Jenny glanced sidelong at her friend, even though Martha's voice held no bitterness. "I'm sorry." "Don't be. Harold was my mistake. I made it. Now I have to live with it. Can't you go to the county sheriff? Maybe he can make Harold stop treating you so badly." Martha shook her head. "There is nothing anyone except Harold can do." Arriving at Martha and Harold's tidy house on the corner of 2 small streets, a short white picket fence surrounding the green, trimmed lawn, the 2 women discovered Harold sitting on the porch. Swigging a beer in a tall mug, he eyed them sourly as they walked up the steps. "Your stuff is in the back room," he said, his voice bitter, cold. "Drop that off, then fix me my lunch." Jenny noticed Martha immediately dropped her eyes and refused to meet Harold's. She nodded obediently and walked past him into the house. Jenny herself dared not show him defiance or anger, for she knew he may not hit her, but he would take his fury out on Martha. He had done it before. Following her friend, Jenny carried her boxes to the tiny room at the end of the hall, finding Martha depositing the satchel she carried next to the others already there. "Go ahead and start unpacking," Martha said, gesturing toward the small bureau. "I'm going to make his lunch. Afterward, you and I can eat." "All right. After that, will you walk with me to the station? I want to see if Wesley sent another letter." "I can't." Martha gazed at her, helpless. "He doesn't like me to leave the house." "Not unless he is with me." Jenny shook her head after Martha left the room, wishing there was something she could do to help her friend. But the law said a man could discipline his wife and didn't specify how. Few could or would interfere in the relationship between a man and his wife. Not for the first time, Jenny thought it was a dangerous law. Abuse was abuse and no one should be forced to endure it. It did not take her long to unpack her immediate necessities and clothes, then she stacked the rest in the corner. Already filled with the narrow bed, the bureau, and a tiny wardrobe, she had little room to move around in it. Still, it was a roof over her head, and she would never complain. Leaving it, she went in search of Martha, and found her in the kitchen making them sandwiches. Harold ate his lunch, Martha said. So we can now have ours. Sitting at the small table, they ate their beef and onion sandwiches, talking. Harold went to the tavern, Martha said. He always does when he's not working. Does he get drunk? Sometimes, but not often. He doesn't have to be drunk to, you know. No, Jenny replied dryly. Just has to be feeling mean. Which is all the time. He does have his good points. Like what? Martha stared at her plate for a long while. He's a good provider. Jenny snorted. Ah, so he has one good character trait. I didn't think he'd even have that much. You know I can't defend him to you, Martha said, her tone miserable. But please, please, do not judge him. That's not for me to do, anyway. As far as I'm concerned, as long as he takes care of you but keeps his hands to himself, he can be as mean-minded as he wants. I can't control him, Martha said, standing up and collecting the dishes. Why don't you go to the station and see if you have a letter waiting for you? I will clean this up. Jenny walked the few blocks to the train station alone, passing the saloon on her way. Piano music floated out as well as the sound of laughter and the scent of cigar smoke. Pausing to gaze in, she saw Harold on a bar stool, chatting amiably with the bartender and drinking a beer. Moving on, she wondered if he showed his mean streak to others he knew, the people he worked or drank with. She decided he probably didn't, as no one in the town seemed to gossip about him, and she thought they would if he was violent outside his home as well as in it. The station master, a short, balding man with spectacles on his nose, greeted her with a smile. Good afternoon, Miss Marlowe, he said pleasantly. I expect you are here to pick up your mail. Jenny brightened immediately. Then I have some? You do indeed. Just a moment while I find it. Standing behind his counter, he leafed through a small stack of envelopes. Ah, yes, here we are. Postmarked Sweetwater, Arkansas. Thank you. Eager, Jenny took the letter from him and tore open the envelope. Walking slowly toward the door, she read the missive from Wesley. My dear Jenny. I hope this finds you well. I wish to convey, again, my condolences upon the loss of your father. I, too, have lost my parents and now have no family in this world. The weather has been fine, with plenty of rain for the crops. It seems that I have taken to dreaming about you as I sleep. I see you with how you have described yourself, your hair in a long braid, your hazel eyes and sweet smile. Though I have never seen you in person, I believe I now see you in my dreams, every night. I myself believe I am not much to look at, as handsome could never describe me. But I will say I am not truly ugly either. But looks mean nothing, as it is what is within our hearts that truly counts. You can be as homely and plain as anything, but I could still love your kind heart. I know you have one, Jenny, for I read it in your letters. Please write me when you can, for your letters bring me much joy. Yours, Wesley Pike. Refolding the letter into its envelope, Jenny turned and walked back to the counter. May I write an answer, Mr. Jared? Of course, miss. From behind the counter, the station master brought out a sheet of paper, quill pen, ink jar, and an envelope. Leaving her to write in privacy, he went to the far end and occupied himself there as she pondered what to write. Dear Wesley. Your letters, too, bring me joy and much to look forward to. Thank you for your condolences, they mean a great deal to me. It was difficult to see my father pass, but he is no longer suffering from his dreadful ailment. His house has been sold, and I will be staying with my good friend Martha and her husband, Harold. I weary of the miles between us and hope that I may meet you in person soon. Though it is not my wish to place undue pressure on you, I do so hope and pray that we will have a future together. You also seem to be a kind and compassionate man, one I would love raising a family with. For now, however, I am enjoying our correspondence, and have nothing save the warmest regard for you, Wesley. You have become the light in my dark and sorrowful life. I, too, feel the goodness that flows from you in your letters, and look forward to reading more. I do hope I am in your heart, for you truly are in mine. Yours, Jenny. After folding the missive into the envelope, Jenny wrote his address on it, then paid Mr. Jared for the paper and stamp. Then, as if she could barely feel her feet on the wooden sidewalk, she floated back to Martha's house. He is going to ask me to marry him soon. I can feel it. Happy as she always was after reading one of his tender letters, she hardly noticed that Harold had returned from the saloon, reeking of alcohol. Chapter 2. Jenny's euphoria did not last long. As she told Martha about Wesley's letter, the crash of breaking glass sounded from the kitchen. With her expression filled with alarm and no little fear, Martha hurried from Jenny's room. Jenny followed, concerned that Harold had lashed out in anger on the dishes and would soon follow with his fists. Though he did not appear drunk, his eyes were rimmed in red, and his round, flat face seemed meaner than ever. Harold? Martha asked, glancing at the broken glass on the floor. What happened? Jenny noticed again how Martha avoided direct eye contact with her husband. Harold himself paced restlessly around the small area like a caged animal, his fists clenched. She need not have experienced a man striking out at her, but she recognized the signs of a man perilously on the edge of losing control. This is your fault, he growled, glaring at Martha. How is this mess her fault? Jenny snapped. She was with me. When Harold turned his fury on her and Martha made a quick, pleading gesture with her hands, Jenny knew she had made a mistake. While she may not be married to the man, Martha was vulnerable to his anger. She could not see him lashing out at Martha for something she did or said. You left the glass too close to the edge, he said, his voice low, dangerous. I told you about that before. Yes, Martha agreed quickly. You did. I'm sorry. Get a broom and clean it up before I cut myself. Yes, of course. Thankful when Harold spun on his heel and left the room, Jenny bent to pick up the larger pieces while Martha fetched a broom. Together they cleaned up the mess, neither of them speaking. Troubled, Jenny wondered what might have happened to Martha had she not been there. Peeking out of the kitchen, Jenny saw Harold pacing around the living room before finally walking out onto the front porch. There, he sat in his rocking chair to gaze moodily out into the street. If I hadn't been here, Jenny whispered slowly. Would he have hit you? Martha dumped the broken glass into the trash, shrugging. I don't know. He contains himself when other people are around. It's like he doesn't want witnesses. No, I reckon he would not, Jenny replied thoughtfully. If people knew, they would gossip, maybe condemn him. He would have a reputation. Right now, his reputation is being a friendly guy. Everyone likes him, Martha said, sitting down at the table. She stroked her fingers over her bruised eye. He never says so, but I know it is important to him to maintain it. To have a good name in Tidewater. Martha, Jenny said, walking to the table to sit down opposite her. We need to tell the sheriff. What if he does more than give you a black eye? Martha stared down at her folded hands in her lap. No, she whispered. We must not. Why not? Rather than answer, Martha simply shook her head, her ash blonde hair coming loose from the coil at the nape of her neck. He is my husband, Jenny. I can't betray him like that. Someone besides me should know about this, Jenny went on, her tone urgent. If he kills you. He won't. You don't know that. Martha looked up and tried to smile. He does love me, in his own way. He won't kill me. Besides, sometimes he's real sorry for what he did. He can be real sweet when he wants to be. Jenny sat back watching her friend, worry warring with her cynicism. Love will not protect you if he goes too far and hits you just a little too hard. He doesn't need a gun or a knife. Rising, Martha began assembling bowls from cupboards. Enough talk about that. How about chicken and dumplings for supper? I know it's one of your favorites. Martha, you cannot deny the kind of danger you're in. I'm not in any danger, she replied, avoiding Jenny's gaze. He's my husband. And like I said, I won't betray him. Chapter 3. Whistling as he walked down the wooden sidewalk, Wesley Pike tried to avoid the broad street that the recent rains had turned into a quagmire. Horses and pulling wagons splashed muck everywhere, even upon some of the people on the walkway, Wesley included. He stopped walking more than once and edged away when the horses passed by. Having heard that a train from the east had arrived, he headed for the station. Opening the station door, he discovered he was not the only one from Sweetwater expecting mail. The station was crowded, and Wesley was forced to the far wall as the master held up mail and called out names. He found Sheriff Bill Townsend also backed against the structure's wall and greeted him warmly. "Howdy, Bill," he said, shaking the big man's hand. "Expecting a letter?" "Yup. From the Pinkerton Detective Agency. Got a fella in my cell they have a hankering to get their hands on." Wesley's brow rose. "A killer?" "Nah," Bill replied. "Bank robber. Not much good at it, though. Tried to rob the bank here in Sweetwater after drinking too much, got himself laughed out of the place. When he tried to ride away, he done fell off his horse. I had no idea someone tried to rob the bank." Bill pulled cigarette paper and tobacco from his pocket and rolled a cigarette. Well, had he succeeded, it might have been newsy gossip. But he didn't. "How's your old man?" Bill snorted. "That old geezer. Done killed a bear, and when he went to skin it, it bit him but good." Wesley laughed, knowing his friend exaggerated. "You'd think he'd know a dead bear from a live one by now." "So you would," Bill agreed. "You waiting to hear from that gal in Virginia?" "Yes, I am," Wesley replied, his smile fading. "I just wish I knew if I was doing the right thing." Bill looked at him sharply. "What do you mean?" "Well, look at it this way," Wesley said, "I am writing letters to a girl I ain't never seen. While she seems nice and all, what if it's all a trick? I bring her out here to marry her and I discover, too late, she is not what she seemed or wrote in her letters. And you don't find out until after you're married, is that it?" "Exactly." Bill nodded, pondering and smoking. "Of course, that is the risk in a mail-order bride situation, Wes. All I can tell you is that I have seen it work." "You have?" "Sure. Do you know Thornton and Maggie Reeves?" Wesley frowned thoughtfully. "I think I know who you mean." "They met through the mail-order bride agency," Bill said. "As did Bart and Martha Wilson. Both couples happy as pigs in slop. A few more couples also met this way and are now happily raising families." Encouraged, Wesley glanced up as his name was called. Working his way through the rapidly thinning crowd, he was handed an envelope with the now familiar handwriting address of Tidewater, Virginia. Tearing it open, he read Jenny's letter. "I think she's hoping I will extend the offer of marriage," he said as Bill received his own mail from the station master. "Will you?" Bill asked. Wesley shrugged, feeling torn. Part of him was eager to meet this young lady who sounded so sweet and wonderful, the woman he craved to have in his life. But what if it was all a pretense? What if she was not who she pretended to be? "I need a little more time," he finally answered. "I have to be certain." Chapter 4. The next few days passed uneventfully, and Harold returned to work, leaving the two friends to pass the time together. Cooking, cleaning and washing their clothes took little time with the pair of them working together, permitting them time to sit on the porch and visit. For the time being, Jenny gave up trying to convince Martha to report her abuse to the sheriff, but she recognized that Harold merely contained his rage. It had not vanished and lurked deep in his eyes whenever he glanced at her. "He is really angry you are here," Martha admitted one morning after Harold took his lunch bucket in hand and went to work. "I'm sorry," Jenny said, wiping the breakfast dishes dry. "At the same time, I am not. If my being here protects you even a little, then I am glad I'm here." "No matter what," Martha went on, "for my part, I am very happy you are staying with us. It's so nice to have company." However, the tentative peace in the household was not to last. Instead of coming straight home from the sawmill after work, Harold went to the tavern to drink. Knowing he would be enraged if they ate supper before he did, Jenny and Martha kept their meal of roast beef and potatoes warm. Ignoring their hunger, they made light conversation at the table as the late afternoon waned into evening. Harold finally returned, alcohol fumes floating around his head like a fine mist, his eyes beady and red. "Where's my supper?" he roared, throwing his lunch bucket across the kitchen. "It's ready," Martha said, springing up to pull the roast from the oven. "Look, honey, it's roast. I cooked it just as you like it." Jenny helped serve him, knowing by now it was best for all concerned if she avoided his eyes and hurried to do his bidding. Though she despised herself for her subservience to a man she considered little more than an animal, she went out of her way for Martha's sake. Harold ate the somewhat overcooked roast with single-minded attention, chewing and swallowing as though he hardly tasted it or realized it had long since lost its juicy tenderness. He scowled across the table at the two of them, occasionally cursing under his breath as though reining in his temper. Jenny and Martha ate their meal in silence, Jenny chewing the roast that now had the consistency of dried leather. Though it was hardly edible, she dared not say anything. Harold appeared to be on the very edge of his self-control. She knew it would not take much to set him off. "This supper is terrible," he finally announced, scowling. "You should be ashamed of yourself, Martha. You said you cooked it as I like it." Martha stared at her plate, saying nothing. "Then you should consider coming home on time," Jenny thought. "If you had, the roast wouldn't be overcooked." She tried to keep her expression neutral, but she suspected Harold read her thoughts, if not her defiant emotions, in the flicker of a glance she sent him before she could stop herself. Harold rose from the table. His clenched fist struck Martha on the side of her head, knocking her out of her chair and onto the floor. Her eyes squeezed tightly shut, she lay still. Harold loomed over her, his foot drawn back to kick. "Stop it," Jenny screamed, throwing herself at him. "Leave her alone." Harold paused, and then he raised his fist. Jenny flinched, expecting the blow, but stood steady, unwilling to back away and leave Martha to his violence. She met his vengeful eyes, frightened, knowing full well he meant to hit her, too. Yet, he lowered his arm. "Get out," he gritted. "Get out of my house." Jenny stood still, unwilling to leave Martha. "No." Harold leaned in close, his face a mere inch from hers as though he intended to spit on her. His eyes, Jenny had never before seen such malice in a human before. She had no doubt Harold was a truly evil man. "Get out, or you both die. Here and now." Jenny swallowed hard. I am going to the sheriff." He laughed uproariously. "Go ahead. Me and him are friends. Now, get out." Praying she was doing the right thing, Jenny backed away from him. With a final despairing glance at Martha's inert form on the floor, she ran from the house. Terror added speed to her legs, terror that Harold was busy crushing Martha's skull with a skillet, and that her friend would be dead before Jenny could return. The sheriff's office was about 6 blocks away, not far from the train station. Dogs barked at Jenny as she ran past the houses and small businesses. The lit lamps on posts enabled her to see fairly well. Hoping the sheriff was still there at this time of night, Jenny felt relief pour through her at the sight of a light burning in the window. Knocking briefly, she pushed open the door. From behind his wide oak desk, the sheriff glanced up at her in surprise. Though she had never met him before, she remembered his name, Jack Miller. He was not a huge man by any means, and he moved with the lithe grace of a hunting cat. Auburn hair streaked with premature gray, Jenny had always thought him to be in his middle 30s. His blue eyes in his tanned and rugged face eyed her with alarm. "Is there a problem?" Jenny nodded, trying to catch her breath. "My friend, Martha Andrews. Her husband hit her. I am afraid he's going to kill her." Sheriff Miller frowned. "There's no law against a man hitting his wife," he said, slowly. "But there is if he kills her." "What makes you so sure he plans to?" Jenny wanted to scream in frustration. "I saw him, Sheriff. I saw the look in his eyes. She might be dead already. I know Harold Andrews, Sheriff Miller said. I always thought of him as an agreeable sort of fellow. Not given to violence. And what you don't know about him will see Martha into her grave, Jenny snapped. Will you please just come and talk to him? Warn him or something? He slowly rose from behind his desk. I suppose that wouldn't hurt. Jenny closed her eyes. Thank you. Remember this though, young miss, he said, opening the door for her. I can only warn him against excessive punishments. If Mrs. Andrews is all right, there isn't anything else I can do. If he thinks you're watching him, Jenny replied, hurrying down the street beside him, then it may be enough to curb his temper. He may not strike her as much. I for one am not a man who hits a woman, Sheriff Miller said, easily matching her fast pace. If I hit my wife, Bessie would take a horsewhip to my hide. I fear Martha is incapable of defending herself. I have seen you around, he said, glancing at her. But I cannot recall your name. Jenny Marlowe, she replied, extending her hand, even as they walked. My father recently died, and I was forced to sell his house to pay his debts, even his doctor's bills. I am staying with the Andrews for now. I knew your old man, Miller said. I'm right sorry for your loss. He was a good fellow. Hearing praise for her father brought her grief up, renewed and fresh, and Jenny blinked away tears. Her throat closed, and it was a long moment before she could say, thank you. Reaching Harold and Martha's house, Jenny opened the door and led the way in. Miller followed, removing his tall cowboy hat as he did so. The lamplight glittered off the badge on his shoulder, and she noticed Harold's gaze immediately shoot toward it. He sat, calm and feigning surprise at the late visitor, in the living room, his feet on a footstool. How nice to see you, Jack, he said, his voice agreeable as he rose. What brings you here? Ignoring his attempt at pleasantries, Jenny hurried past him to the kitchen, her heart in her throat. Martha stood at the sink, washing dishes, and raised a tiny smile at seeing her. Martha, Jenny gasped, her hand reaching for the damp lump on the side of her head. Are you all right? Of course, I'm all right. I'm fine, she answered, but the tense lines of pain around her eyes and mouth belied her words. Hearing the men's voices in the other room, Jenny examined the wound. The blood had been washed away from her hair, yet there was no doubt she had been struck hard. Harold, smirking, walked in with Miller at his shoulder. Tell the sheriff what happened, Martha, he said. How you stumbled and fell, hitting your head on the table. Jenny gasped. You liar. You hit her, I saw you do it. Catching a cool glance from Sheriff Miller, Jenny shut her mouth and gritted her teeth. Can you tell me what happened, Mrs. Andrews? He asked, his tone kind. Her head bowed, meeting no one's eyes, least of all Jenny's. She murmured, I fell. I hit my head. Martha. See, Sheriff, Harold said expansively. My wife fell, and while Miss Marlowe was off telling lies to you, I helped Martha take care of her injury. It is what any loving husband would do. All but choking on her rage, Jenny tried to slay him with her eyes, wishing she was a man so she could beat the tarnation out of him. Miller flicked his glance amid the three of them, his face devoid of all expression. Jenny willed him to believe her, to call Harold out on his lies, to arrest him and frighten the meanness out of his soul. Now I am not one to get between a man and his wife, Miller said slowly. Domestic issues ain't none of my business. If Mrs. Andrews said she fell, then she fell. At these words, Jenny wanted to scream and throw something at him. Instead, she fisted her hands and counted slowly to 10 until the impulse passed. However, Harold, the sheriff went on, it's one thing to smack your wife. It is quite another to do her great injury. I sure would hate to come back here and interfere with your relationship with your wife because you are too heavy-handed. Harold's eyes grew wide with feigned hurt. Why, Jack, he said, his voice plaintive. I love my wife dearly. I would never hurt her. Of course not, Miller replied, his tone dry. Now, Miss Marlowe, would you be so kind as to see me out? I wish to have a few words with you. Nodding, glaring at Harold's feigned innocence, Jenny followed him to the door. Miller did not stop at the porch but took Jenny with him to the sidewalk. He glanced at the house, the shadow of Harold watching them from the window. I must apologize, Miss Marlowe, the sheriff said, his voice pitched low. You are right, Harold is a vicious man. Stunned, Jenny gaped. You believe me? Yes. I just could not say it to him. I can smell a liar from 10 feet away, and both of them lied through their teeth. What are you going to do? He sighed, replacing his hat on his head. Nothing. Nothing? Legally, there is little I can do, Miss Marlowe. But I can let him know I'm watching him. Discreetly. It won't solve the problem, not really, but it may make him cautious enough to stay his hand. For a while. Thank you for that, anyway, Jenny replied, feeling relieved. Her anger toward the sheriff washed away. But I think it's ridiculous that a man can abuse his wife and the law does nothing about it. I don't make the laws, he replied, I just enforce them. Now you be careful, too, young miss. That man ain't above harming you, too. I know. Have a good night, then. Tipping his hat to her, Sheriff Miller walked back the way they had come and vanished into the darkness. Jenny watched him leave, feeling dread replace her anger and relief. Not knowing what she faced by going back into the house, she steeled herself and returned inside. Oddly, Harold sat in his chair, staring at the fire on the hearth. He did not look up or speak to her as she went past him and into the kitchen. Martha sat at the table, weeping silent tears, a dishcloth held to her face. Her shoulders shook with the effort of not letting a sound emerge. Martha. Jenny sat in the chair beside her, and rested her arm over the other woman's shoulders, trying to still their trembling. It's all right, Martha. I'm here. I'm so sorry, Martha whispered, her words almost unheard through the towel. I am so sorry. Why should you be sorry? Jenny said, brushing her hand gently over Martha's hair. Everything is going to be all right. Lifting her face from the cloth, Martha gazed at her through red, streaming eyes. No. They won't be all right. I had to lie, Jenny. Well, my husband does love me. He just gets tired sometimes. You know, he works awful hard at his job. What? Jenny stared at her. Martha didn't answer. I need to go to bed. Helpless, Jenny watched her make her way slowly out of the kitchen and down the hall toward the bedroom she shared with Harold. She heard the door close. Not long after, she listened as Harold's heavy strides also walked down the hall and go into the bedroom. But she sat in the chair until late, thinking, before she turned down the lamps and sought her own sleep. Chapter 5. My dearest Jenny. I must tell you how much I enjoy your letters and look forward to them. I feel as though I can see your beautiful soul shining through your words, hear your voice speaking to me. Not a day goes by that I do not think of you, to wonder how you fare, and of course, whether you are thinking of me. Forgive me that I have not spoken for you, yet. I do want to marry, of course, and raise children. I am simply uncertain if this is the correct route in which to find a bride. Please allow me time to consider things and pray for the right course to present itself. I beg you to think kindly of me and keep me in your prayers. As you are in mine. Yours. Wesley Pike. Despair flooded Jenny's heart. After all this time, Wesley still had not asked for her hand in marriage. While she understood his reluctance in asking a virtual stranger to marry him, she could not wait forever. He had told her that single, marriageable women were scarce in Sweetwater, Arkansas, so she did not fear he would find a bride in his town. Once again fishing out coins from her handbag to buy paper, an envelope and a stamp, she wrote a reply immediately. Dearest Wesley. As always, your letter warmed my heart. I truly look forward to hearing from you and hope that one day soon I can meet you in person and gaze into your eyes. I close mine and picture myself in your arms, to hear your heartbeat in your chest, and know that when I am with you, I am cared for, safe and loved. My feelings for you have grown throughout our correspondence, and I cannot help but feel as though I have known you all my life. Be well, my Wesley, and do not hesitate to write me back. Your true love. Jenny. Wondering if she had been too forward in informing him of her feelings, Jenny reread what she wrote. I must be honest with him, she muttered, folding the paper and settling it into the envelope. I do have feelings for him. Licking the stamp, she placed it on the outside corner and wrote Wesley's name and address on it. Handing it to Mr. Jared with a smile, Jenny left the station. Chapter 6. Unable to halt the silly grin etching its way across his face, Wesley read, then reread, Jenny's letter. She is developing feelings for me, he murmured, scanning it yet again. I am certainly gaining a few of those myself. Folding it back into its envelope, he left the station and untied his horse from the rail. Mounting up, he rode up the street, bemused at how easily and naturally he had fallen for Jenny Marlowe, a woman whose face he had never seen, whose voice he had never heard. He had fallen headlong into love with words written on paper. He frowned a little when he realized that was exactly what he had done, fallen in love with some letters. But what if everything she has told me are lies? What if she is presenting herself as something other than what she seems? Finding no answers, he thought to ride home to the ranch and ponder Jenny's letter, as well as all the correspondence they had exchanged over the last 6 months. Doubt plagued him, something Wesley had never truly felt before. He ran his successful sheep and cattle ranch with a sure hand and steadily profited. Now, he needed a wife and children. But was this the right way to go about it? As he rode, his eye caught sight of a tall red-haired man riding down the still damp street toward him. He seemed vaguely familiar, and Wesley racked his brain to remember his name. Ah, yes. Thornton Reeves. As the two men closed the distance between each other, Wesley raised his hand to catch the other's attention. Excuse me, he said, as the red-haired man reined in his horse. Are you Thornton Reeves? He replied in a thick Irish brogue. I am. Wesley held out his hand. I'm Wesley Pike. Your name came up in a conversation recently. Mr. Reeves grinned. I hope it be a good one. It was. Sheriff Townsend told me you married a mail-order bride, and I hoped you might advise me. Mr. Reeves replied, his grin widening. My Maggie makes me the happiest man in Arkansas. I had been corresponding with a young lady in Virginia, Wesley went on. I am fearing to make the final decision to ask for her hand in marriage. Might I ask why, Mr. Pike? I am afraid she is not what she seems. Let me tell you about my wife, Mr. Reeves said, his grin fading. I asked for a bride and she came west, the most beautiful girl I had ever seen. I knew I was blessed by God. But Maggie had a past, something she hid from me, and for good reason. If she had told me in her letters that she had been a saloon girl, I would have looked elsewhere. Wesley stared at him, stunned. But you married her anyway? She told me about herself when she came to Sweetwater, Mr. Reeves continued. Wanted no lies between us. She gave me the option to walk away or get to know her. I got to know her, and I am right glad I did. And now, I am the luckiest man in Arkansas, as I never held her past against her. That's an incredible story, Wesley murmured. I suppose there is only one way to know for sure, isn't there? Mr. Reeves nodded. I like to believe most folks are honest, Mr. Pike. If your lass in Virginia seems right, then so be it. Worst that can happen is you don't get along and you refuse to marry her. I am hoping to avoid bringing her all this way unless I am sure. Are you sure, then? Wesley grinned and shook his head in wonder. I am now. I feel a whole lot better hearing your story. Maybe, I just need to take the plunge. I am going to write to her and ask for her hand in marriage. Chapter 7. Martha healed quickly, and with Harold at work, the two of them once more completed their housework with plenty of time to sit on the porch and chat. Since Sheriff Miller's visit, Harold had kept his hands to himself. The sheriff could often be seen talking with people or loitering in the sun near the house when Harold returned from work. Jenny had seen the two men eye one another as Miller cheerfully waved, and Harold nodded back with a tight expression. "I feel safer when the sheriff is around," Martha confessed as they drank tea on the porch, their sunbonnets protecting their faces from the bright sun that shone below the porch roof. "But he can't spend all his time watching over you," Jenny told her, smiling and waving as two stout matrons passed by on the lane. "Martha, please consider leaving him." "Leave him? He's my husband, Jenny. Besides, where would I go?" Martha asked. "You know my folks will not let me stay with them." Jenny shook her head. "The boarding house can take you in. And I heard rumors in town that the hotel is hiring maids. You can work there and be free of him. For good. You know how people frown upon divorce, Jenny. I will be an outcast. But you'll be alive." Martha gazed out over the tidy homes on the street, children chasing a ball while a pair of small dogs chased them, yapping happily. "I think that if I were to have a child, it would soften Harold's heart. And his fists." "I don't agree," Jenny replied, her tone alarmed. "It will give him one more outlet for his rage." Her friend's voice dropped. "I wish I had never married him, Jenny," she said, miserable. "My parents never approved of him, and now they have turned their backs on me. When I try to explain, beg their forgiveness, they simply say, 'We told you so.' That's cruel. It's my lot. And Harold, well, like I've said before, he has his good points. I have everything I need." Jenny cringed. "Everything you need? What about love and respect?" She sighed. "There has to be an answer for this. Some kind of solution that will keep you safe." "Sometimes I wish he would kill me," Martha admitted. "Just get it over with." Jenny jumped from her chair. "Do not say that. How can you speak such words?" "Why not? It's the truth." "Well, here is one more truth," Jenny snapped. "If he kills you, then I will either hang or spend the rest of my life in jail, for I will kill him." Martha gaped at her, shocked. "You cannot mean that." "I do," Jenny said fervently, before sitting down again. Fortunately for them both, Harold minded his manners and kept his fists to himself, but the menace in his eyes made Jenny shiver. She knew it was only a matter of time before he snapped and hurt Martha again. He spent more time at the saloon after work and on his days off, and Jenny hoped he vented his rage through drink somehow so Martha would be safe. "You should be minding your own blasted business," he growled at Jenny one morning. "What goes on between my wife and me is none of your concern." Jenny feigned the wide-eyed innocence he'd displayed to the sheriff. "Why, Harold, I have no idea what you're talking about. I know you're trying to get Martha to leave me. That, of course, is her decision. Not while I am still her husband, it ain't. I run this house, not her, nor you. If you want to continue abiding under my roof, you best keep your snooty nose clean." "Or what?" Jenny demanded. "You'll hit me, too?" Harold glared at her, his muddy eyes like daggers piercing through her. "I will force you out. If I leave, Harold, Martha comes with me." After that exchange, Harold had little to say to either of them. But Jenny felt his rage building behind his calm demeanor, like a black storm on the horizon. She stepped carefully around him, eyeing him as she might a beast she suspected had rabies, and kept herself between him and Martha as much as possible. The following week, when Harold worked and Martha napped, Jenny walked to the train station. Mr. Jared greeted her with a smile and a sealed envelope with her name on it. "From your Sweetwater sweetheart," he said, chuckling at his own joke. Jenny smiled back and ripped open the paper to read Wesley's letter. "My dearest Jenny, I cannot contain myself any longer. I want you to come west to Sweetwater and marry me. I know this is not the most romantic proposal, but I can repeat it when I meet you. I will wire the train fare to you once I receive your heartfelt agreement, which I hope will be soon. I feel as you do, that I have known you all my life, and my feelings for you have grown as well. I promise to give you all the joy and love you can desire throughout our lives, and I already see us, years ahead, growing old together, hand in hand. I look forward to your warm and wonderful, yes, I will marry you, in your next letter. Thus, I salute you as your loving fiancé. Wesley. Tears burst from Jenny. He wants to marry me. From the end of the counter, Mr. Jared grinned, gazing at her over his spectacles. That is wonderful news, Miss Marlowe, he exclaimed. Congratulations. But I must admit, the young man took long enough. Had I been him, I'd have asked for your hand ages ago. I'm so thrilled, Jenny said, wiping her eyes and rereading the letter. He finally asked me to marry him. Oh, I can't wait to share this with Martha. At the thought of her friend, all the joy drained from Jenny like water down a sink. But I can't. Her once happy tears changed to true weeping when she realized that the minute she got on that train, Harold would renew his physical assaults on Martha. How could she leave her friend in mortal danger? Glancing up at a now very puzzled Mr. Jared, Jenny said, I must reply to him at once. May I purchase paper again, Mr. Jared? Of course. After paying him the usual amount for the paper, envelope, and stamp, Jenny pondered what to write. Complete honesty, she muttered. My dearest Wesley and fiancé. Of course, yes, I will marry you, and I cannot wait until the day when there are no more miles between us. But there is something I have not told you about my situation. My dear and best friend, Martha, with whom I am staying, is in terrible danger from her husband. I am the only one standing between them. Should I embark on a train to come to you, I have no doubt he will beat her to the point of killing her. Forgive me, Wesley, my future husband, for I cannot come to you now. Do not despair, my dearest, for once I no longer need fear for Martha's safety, I will be on the train to you. All my love to you, your adoring fiancé. Jenny. Sealing the envelope and giving it to Mr. Jared, she found him eyeing her curiously. You did tell the young man yes, did you not? Jenny nodded, smiling a little. I did. I just can't go to Sweetwater yet. I hope you can go soon. Of course, I will miss seeing you. He suddenly grinned. I have been living vicariously through you, Miss Marlowe, watching your budding romance grow. Jenny laughed. I'm glad you were here to see it. Martha crowed with delight and flung her arms around Jenny when she finished reading the letter aloud. I am so happy for you, my friend. When do you go? Expecting the question, Jenny tucked the letter back into its envelope. Not for a while. Martha's smile faded. Why? Wesley said he will wire you the money for the fare. What else would keep you in town? You. Oh, no, Jenny. For the first time in a long while, Martha set her arms on her hips and glared at Jenny. No, you will get on that train, and you will go to Sweetwater, Arkansas, and you will marry that blessed man. I will, Jenny replied easily. If you come with me. You know I can't. Then I can't leave you. I won't leave you. You cannot stop your life or your marriage because of me. I'm not stopping my life, Jenny replied. I am merely putting it off a bit until I know you're safe. I am safe. Jenny glared in her turn. You know the minute I am gone, Harold will beat you senseless, if not to death. No, he won't. The sheriff is watching him. Sheriff Miller can watch him, yes, Jenny said. But he cannot see through the walls of this house. You know it, and so does Harold. The sheriff cannot protect you all the time. I will not be the reason you do not marry, Martha said emphatically. You must go. I am getting married, Jenny replied, calm now for she knew she was doing the right thing. Just not at the moment. Martha's eyes filled with tears, but she shook her head. I love you like my own sister, she said. But sometimes you frustrate me so much. Jenny smiled. I love you, too, sister. Chapter 8. What? Wesley stared down at the missive in his hand, aggravation filling him. She cannot come west out of fear that her friend will be killed by her own husband? He had not realized he all but shouted inside the train station, the master and several patrons staring at him as though he had suddenly gone insane. Flushing to his hairline, he folded the letter and stormed out. Mounting his horse, he trotted through the street toward Sheriff Bill Townsend's office. Fortunately, he found Bill inside, his feet up on his desk, reading the newspaper. Bill glanced up as he walked in. "I want you to read this," Wesley said, thrusting Jenny's letter at him. His anger had not abated one bit. Bill eyed him and lowered his feet to the floor. In silence, he read the letter twice, then eyed Wesley. "Not a good situation for your lady to be in," he said. "A man like that don't always care who he hits." "I know. Is there anything you can do?" Shaking his head, Bill stood up. "Virginia ain't in my jurisdictional area." Frustrated and now worried sick, Wesley paced Bill's office. "So, Jenny is in very real danger, then?" "If she stays, I would say yes." "Can you convince her to come out here?" "I can try," Wesley replied, running his hands through his hair. "But one thing I have learned through her letters is that Jenny is fiercely loyal to her friends. She's dedicated, nursed her father until his death. Then it will be tough to pry her away from her friend." Bill set his hip against his desk. "I can do one thing, Wes," he said. "I can wire the sheriff in Tidewater. Ask him what he thinks of the situation." Gratitude flooded Wesley. "I will pay the fee, Bill." "Then let's go." Grabbing his hat from its peg, Bill put it on, and opened the door for Wesley to precede him. "I hope the news we get back is good," he said. "Maybe this husband has a heavy hand, and your Jenny exaggerated the element of danger. She sounded convinced that her friend would be killed." Bill nodded. "Nor from her letter did I get the notion that she is an excitable type either." The telegraph office lay only a few doors down from Bill's office. Going inside, Wesley pulled some money from his pocket as Bill recited his questions for the clerk to tap into his machine. Once done, Wesley paid him, and Bill asked him to notify him the moment an answer came back. "This may be a while before we hear back," Bill said as they walked out onto the sidewalk. "I'll go to the hotel and grab a bite," Wesley said. "If you are hungry, it'll be my treat." "I think I'll take you up on that offer. Just let me tell John where we'll be in case an answer comes back." The two men sat in the hotel and ate lunch, Wesley fretting with every moment that passed without the telegraph clerk arriving to inform them they had an answer. Though he tried hard not to, he worried that Jenny might already have been hurt by this beast of a husband. The clock's hand crept slowly around until an hour passed, then two. At last, the clerk walked through the door. Bill waved his hand to get his attention, and then read the short response, frowning pensively. Wesley itched to grab the paper from Bill's hand and read it for himself. Then Bill handed it to him. Wesley read it quickly. "The sheriff believes this Harold Andrews fellow is a real danger to his wife," Bill said as Wesley read the same thing. "Describes him as a vicious dog. I have to get Jenny out of there," Wesley said, dropping the note to the table. "But how?" "The girl has her own mind, Wes. You'll just have to let her work it out." Chapter 9. Martha decided to not tell Harold about Jenny's marriage proposal, and the two celebrated with small glasses of wine on the porch. "I wish I could be there for your wedding, Jenny," Martha said, sipping her wine. "You can," Jenny replied. "Come with me." "Oh, Harold will never permit me to go." "What kind of wife would I be if I deserted my husband?" "An alive wife." Martha scowled. "Please, stop. I can't listen to it anymore. And what makes you so sure he will try to kill me?" "Harold himself," Jenny said, gazing at her friend. "My gut. Sheriff Miller. Take your pick. You don't seem to realize how truly vicious he is. Even if he doesn't intend to kill you, he is strong, and you aren't. He could hit you again, and hit you too hard. Then your head bounces off the table. Stop. Jenny fell silent and watched Martha closely. She sensed that Martha was close to giving in. She witnessed her internal struggle, and she recognized that Martha only stayed with Harold out of duty, not love. She considered giving Martha another push, to see if her friend might finally be persuaded to run away, but Martha spoke before she could. "I will think about it, Jenny," she said, her voice soft. "That is all I will promise you right now." "That's enough for me," Jenny said, sipping her wine. "That's all I can ask from you." As had become his habit, Harold went to the saloon after work and returned home late. And drunk. He also sported a black eye, swollen nose, and split lip. Jenny dared not look at him for fear she would break out into wild brays of laughter, but Martha went to him, concerned. "Harold," she said, her voice worried. "Are you all right? What hap?" Jenny heard the sharp thwack of his hand striking flesh and spun around in time to see Martha stagger backwards, her own hand rising to her face. But she tripped over a chair behind her, tried to catch her balance, and fell. Her arms flailing, she landed against the sharp edge of the stove with her back and ribs. "Martha!" Jenny screamed. Martha, the blood draining from her face, collapsed on the floor and gasped, trying to breathe, writhing in agony. Jenny dropped to her knees beside her, trying to hold her still. "Martha, just breathe, Martha, you're going to be all right." Jenny glared at Harold over her shoulder. He stood, swaying slightly, his eyes wide as he stared at his wife as though he had no idea what had just transpired. "Go get the doctor," Jenny snarled. "Ah, hell, she'll be all." "Get the doctor, now." Pouting like a spanked little boy, Harold muttered under his breath, then turned and shambled toward the door. Turning back to Martha, Jenny found her still gasping. "My ribs. I think they're broken." "Hush, now," Jenny soothed, brushing Martha's hair back from her face. "Don't talk, just breathe. Try to relax." "Jen, it hurts." "I know, dearest, I know. Remember when we were kids? How I fell out of the tree and broke mine? Remember how I screamed?" Martha tried a smile. "I remember. So just focus on breathing. When Harold comes back with the doctor, we'll get you into bed, eh? Get you fixed up. Shoo, don't try to talk." Though it seemed to take hours for Harold to return with the doctor, it truly was not that long, Jenny admitted to herself. She heard the men's voices in the other room and smiled encouragingly at Martha. "The doctor will give you something for the pain." "Hope so." It was not two men who tramped into the tiny kitchen, but three. Jenny found Sheriff Miller accompanying Harold and the doctor, Saul Winters, who tended her father for so many months. He eyed Jenny with surprise as he took off his black derby hat and gave her a warm smile. "Jenny," he said, dropping his bag on the table and removing his coat. "It is good to see you again." "You as well, Doc Winters." Jenny edged to the side as Dr. Winters knelt beside her to examine Martha, but she did not leave entirely. Martha, too, tried to smile at him, but cried out as his gentle hands probed her side. He glanced up, then rose to his feet. "Jack, will you help me to get her into her bed?" he asked, not even glancing in Harold's direction. Sheriff Miller nodded, and the two bent to carefully pick Martha up. But no matter how they tried to be gentle, Martha screamed in pain. Under her cries and sobs, they took her from the kitchen and, with Jenny following anxiously, placed her in the bed she shared with her husband. Sheriff Miller touched Jenny's arm. "Was this an accident?" he asked, his voice low. "Did she fall?" "Of course, she fell," Jenny snapped in an undertone. After he backhanded her across the face. The sheriff grimaced. He denied striking her. He lied. "All right." As Sheriff Miller left the room, Jenny helped Dr. Winters undress her, while keeping her mostly modestly concealed under the blanket. Jenny gasped at the hideous bruising along Martha's belly, ribs and back, yet tried to offer Martha an encouraging smile. Dr. Winters pulled a small bottle from his black bag. "Jenny, please fetch a glass of water." Heading into the kitchen, Jenny saw Harold and Sheriff Miller in the living room. Harold stared at his feet as Miller spoke to him in a low and threatening tone. She could not hear what he said. She pumped water from the hand pump into the sink. Filling a glass full of water, she returned to the bedroom. Thanking her, Dr. Winters poured a white powder into the water, stirred it, then encouraged Martha to drink it all. "This will drop you right into dreamland," he assured Martha as she drank it. "Soon, you won't be in any pain." Nor was he wrong. Within minutes, Martha relaxed, the lines of pain around her eyes and mouth vanishing. After a few more minutes had passed, she slept soundly. "Now I want to bind her ribs," Dr. Winters told Jenny. "You are my helper and her chaperone. I believe they are only cracked, not splintered, and binding them will help her heal and ease her pain. But she will have to remain bedridden for several weeks." Jenny nodded. "I'm staying here until, well, for the time being. I can do her chores and care for her." "Good. Because I don't think that useless lug she married will." That useless lug Martha married sat in the living room, his head in his hands, as Sheriff Miller stood over him. As though waiting for her to appear, the sheriff approached Jenny as she and Dr. Winters emerged from the bedroom, Jenny softly closing the door behind her. "I'm taking Harold to jail for a few days," Miller said. "Try to get it into his thick skull that there are consequences to hurting another person, even if that person is his wife." "Did he get into a brawl at the saloon?" she asked. Miller nodded. "He lost and got the stuffing beat out of him. Hope he learns from that too, what it is like to fight with someone who can fight back." Jenny eyed Harold. "I doubt that will teach him anything, Sheriff. He's a bully, and bullies only pick on people weaker than themselves." He tipped his hat to her. "You may be right, Miss Marlowe." Taking Harold with him, Sheriff Miller left the house. Not truly realizing how tense she was with Harold in the house and drunk, she drew a deep breath as the door closed behind them. At least she and Martha would have a few days of peace before Sheriff Miller turned him loose. "Jenny," Dr. Winters said, garnering her attention. "I want you to give Martha a small amount of this packet twice a day for her pain. Just a pinch in water is all she needs. Make sure she gets rest, lots of water to drink as we do not want her dehydrated. Get her to eat as much as you can, soup and the like, but don't worry if she has no appetite for a while." "All right. Thank you." He patted her shoulder. "I'm very glad you're here for her, Jenny." "Me, too. I know you'll look after her very well indeed. Just as you did your father." Jenny tried to smile. "Will you come back and look in on her?" "Tomorrow." After showing him to the door, Jenny checked on Martha, assuring herself that her friend still slept, then went to the kitchen. Dinner had been a roasted chicken with carrots, potatoes and freshly baked bread. Though not hungry, she took the chicken from the oven, and made herself eat a few pieces. "You are going to become soup," she told the brown fowl. "Just what Martha needs." Feeling oddly alone with Martha asleep and Harold gone, Jenny felt restless. She cut the chicken up, put the pieces into a pot for the morning, and did the same for the uneaten carrots and potatoes. Humming to comfort herself through this weird sensation of being virtually alone in someone else's home, she thought about Wesley, about his marriage proposal, and she smiled to herself. "Soon, Wesley," she murmured. "Soon, we will be married." Chapter 10. Soup. Martha asked. "For breakfast?" Martha admitted to feeling a great deal of pain, and Jenny gave her a pinch of the white powder per Dr. Winters' orders. After it took effect, Martha said she felt strange, lightheaded, as though she could float on air. Holding the hot bowl in her lap with a towel to protect her, Jenny fed her spoonful after spoonful of the fresh chicken soup. "Where is Harold?" Martha asked in between sips of the soup. "Jail." Martha closed her mouth and stared up at her. "Truly? It's where he belongs. Sheriff Miller took him last night." "Oh." After eating as much as she could handle, Martha fell asleep. Jenny watched her for a few minutes, then pulled the bed covers up to her chin and quietly left the room. She admitted the soup made an interesting breakfast and ate some herself in the kitchen, then began the daily chores. It felt strange, again, to do the work alone that she'd shared with Martha the last few weeks, but she cleaned and washed clothes as she always had when her father was alive. As she worked, she daydreamed of the same chores in her own home, cooking for Wesley, washing Wesley's clothes, waiting for Wesley to come home from work. He asked me to marry him and I said yes. That thought pursued her through the day as she cared for Martha and Martha's home, giving her the feeling of walking on air, too. Dr. Winters arrived in the middle of the afternoon. He accepted a cold glass of tea, listened to Martha's heart and her complaints of being fed chicken soup at every meal, and pronounced her on the mend. "I ordered the soup, young lady," Dr. Winters informed her placidly. "Though I will politely ask the cook for a few variations on your behalf." Thus, Jenny extended her culinary skills to make a beef soup, a bean soup, and a pea soup until Martha declared she wanted solid food on her third day of being bedridden. She glared. "I want roast beef, or I'll scratch your eyes out, Jenny." "In a broth?" Jenny widened her eyes innocently. "I am going to strangle you." With Martha healed enough to sit gingerly up in bed with pillows behind her against the headboard, Jenny fixed a meal of roast beef and gravy over mashed potatoes, and Martha moaned with happiness as she devoured her dinner. "This is heavenly," she declared. "Now your soups were delicious, but, really? Every day?" "Doctor's orders." Harold returned after Martha resumed eating solid food, much to Jenny's dismay. She liked not having him around, not having to walk on eggshells, not fearing what he would do next. But, as though the time spent in jail and being whipped in a fair fight had taken the spine from him, Harold spoke politely and respectfully. He kept his hands and eyes to himself, and kissed Martha on the brow as she lay in bed. Not trusting his new behavior an inch, Jenny fed him and cleaned up after him, fixed the lunch he took with him to the sawmill, and tried not to pray he'd be sawed up with the lumber. She knew such thoughts could backfire on her, though she suspected he deserved nothing less. Martha grew stronger with every passing day, her pain less fierce, and soon walked around the house carefully. Jenny made sure she sat on the porch more often than she walked around, and the need for Dr. Winters' powder grew less and less. As what usually happened in small towns, gossip now flew through the streets that Harold Andrews badly beat his wife. As Jenny walked into the train station to see if a letter from Wesley arrived for her, Mr. Jared inspected her over his spectacles. "Are you all right?" he asked, his tone stern. Jenny hesitated in surprise. "Well, yes, Mr. Jared. Why would I not be?" "That wretched Andrews fella," Mr. Jared snapped. "It's one thing to correct your wife to discipline her, but to beat her nearly to death, that is despicable. I grew concerned when you did not arrive to ask for your mail. Thank you for your worry, but I am fine. Martha is recuperating, and I will convey your warm regards to her." "Yes, do that. Here is your letter." With her customary eagerness, Jenny ripped open the envelope and read. "To my dearest fiancée, Jenny. I am elated that you agreed to become my wife, and yet dismayed by the reason you cannot come west right now. I would be lying if I said I am not worried for your safety, as well as that of your friend. I am very concerned and wish that you will depart on the next train to Arkansas. Though I admire your loyalty to your friend, you must also have a care for yourself. Please be careful and come home soon. Your soon-to-be loving husband, Wesley Pike." "Come home," Jenny murmured, rereading the letter. "Yes, somehow I need to go home. Good news, I hope." Jenny glanced up at Mr. Jared. "Wesley said I should come home. Isn't that the sweetest thing he could say to me?" Mr. Jared cocked his head as though not quite understanding, but he smiled. "Yes, that is rather romantic of the young man. Are you planning to write him back?" "Yes, I certainly am. To my soon-to-be loving husband. Things here have taken a bad turn. Harold badly injured Martha, and she is bedridden. As you must understand, had I not been there to help, who knows what might have happened. He spent some time in jail for it, but I do not believe for an instant he won't do it again, or worse, kill her. Again, I beg your forgiveness and patience while I try to find a way to either persuade Martha to leave him or stop Harold from harming her again. Your soon-to-be loving wife, Jenny. Wesley crumbled the letter in his fist. That scum, he growled. If you dare touch Jenny, so help me, you are a dead man. Turning to the counter, he beckoned the station master. When is the next train to Tidewater, Virginia? Just one moment, sir, while I look it up. Wesley waited, stifling his impatience, as the master consulted his schedules, running his fingers down the long columns. At last, the man glanced up. It looks like one will be arriving in Sweetwater in 3 days. It will be heading east, sir, and can take you to Tidewater. Excellent, Wesley said. Put me down for a ticket. Chapter 11. Let us get out of the house for a while, Jenny said. Your bones are almost healed, and you need a little fresh air and exercise. You know I can't, Martha replied, her face a mask of frustration and sadness. Harold doesn't like me to leave the house unless he's with me. I think he lost that right, Jenny said, trying not to grow angry. First of all, you are an adult who does not need supervision. Second, he is trying to control and manipulate you. I know he is, Martha answered, obviously miserable. I am just now feeling my old self again. I can't risk him hitting me again. It will destroy the progress I've made. It's just a walk. Harold should not get upset about that, even if he finds out. We'll be home before he gets off work. Jenny knew they could be back in plenty of time with Harold none the wiser. At last, Martha gave in. The afternoon sunshine, which prompted Jenny's need to get out of the house, proved pleasant and comfortable. Their sunbonnets kept off the worst of the sun off their skin, and once they had walked a distance, Martha breathed in deeply, smiling. You were right, she admitted. I did need this. It has been far too long since I have been out for a simple walk. People aren't meant to be stuck indoors all the time, Jenny said, feeling her spirits soar. If you come with me to Sweetwater, you can have this kind of freedom all the time. Please, Jenny, Martha said. Let's not talk about that right now. You know I can't leave. Yes, you can. But I won't push you about it today. Walking down the main road through town, they spoke of lighter things, primarily about Jenny's proposed marriage to Wesley. With Tidewater being a small town, it was not long before they reached its edge and strolled down the road with farm crops to either side. Jenny breathed in the fresh odors of turned earth, and the slightly musty scent of green growing things. Perhaps a mile or so outside of town, Martha hesitated. Jenny, I'm getting tired. Let's go back. All right. The afternoon waned toward evening, yet the sun still pleasantly shone down on them as they walked back toward town. The farmers they had passed had vanished to their homes, and no one walked or rode past them. Still, Jenny felt no worry, as it would be hours before full darkness fell. They would be home long before then. I need to tell you something, Martha said at last. Jenny glanced sidelong at her. What? I hope you're not angry with me, Martha said, her voice soft. I have been keeping this from you, so I hope you will forgive me. Now you have me terribly curious. There are more reasons why I can't leave Harold, she said, gazing into the distance, tears in her eyes. Harold told me that if I went to the sheriff about his beatings, he would kill me. But I went to Sheriff Miller, and Harold did not kill you. True. Martha swiped at her eyes. He said that before you came to stay with us. But he also said that if I left him, he would kill my parents. He said what? Martha nodded unhappily. He threatened to kill you, too. Jenny, I am getting more and more scared. I feel like things are spinning out of control. He told me to never go to the sheriff, and now Miller knows how violent he can be. What if he attacks you? What if he kills my parents? Stunned, Jenny said nothing for long moments. He knows he will be the first one suspected if he does, Martha. That should deter him. Harold doesn't think like everyone else, Martha said. He believes he can get away with anything. Even after spending time in jail for what he did to you? Martha nodded. He's been telling me so when we go to bed at night, in privacy, so you won't hear him. Jenny, you must leave. For your own safety. That makes me want to take you with me more than ever. But he will hurt my folks. Feeling a mixture of anger, frustration, and new fear, Jenny walked on. There has to be an answer somewhere. He can't be allowed to keep doing this to you. Yes, he can. He's my husband. The sound of hoofbeats sounded from behind them, but Jenny didn't look up. She assumed the rider was a farmer or a rancher heading into town. So engrossed in her thoughts, she paid the rider and horse no heed until Martha screamed. Horrified, Jenny stared up into Harold's drunken and triumphant face. Upon reaching down from the horse's saddle, he had seized Martha by her shoulder, and was hauling her up and into his lap. Though she struggled, Martha had not his strength, and was lifted, belly down, across the saddle in front of him. No! Jenny yelled, rushing forward. Harold's heavy boot pushed her violently back, hurling her onto her backside on the road. Stunned and winded, Jenny stared up into Harold's evil face. His reddened eyes peered down at her, and she knew he had spent the day drinking and had not been at work. No doubt, he watched them walk past the saloon, and now exacted his revenge for Martha's disobedience. Let her go, Jenny screamed. Harold kicked the horse into skittering sideways, beyond her reach. He sneered. This is my wife, he grated through a nasty grimace. I will do with her as I please. Harold, Martha begged, weeping. You're hurting me. Let me down. Laughing, he gave her a playful swat on her buttocks. I will hurt you far more than that. Pointing his finger at Jenny, Harold's sneering smile vanished. Now you listen good, woman. You get your things and get out of my house. I don't care where you go, just leave. And if you squeal to the sheriff about this, I will kill Martha. I swear I will slit her throat and be gone before anyone can find her body. No one will ever find me. Do you hear me? Staggering to her feet, Jenny stared at him, terror coursing through her veins. Yes, she whispered. What did you say? Yes, I heard you. You won't go to Sheriff Miller? No. I will not go to the sheriff. And you will leave my house? I will leave your house. Just don't hurt her. Please. Laughing, he sneered again. We'll see about that. She needs to be punished for disobeying me. Reining the horse around, Harold kicked it into a canter, Martha's cries of pain loud over the sound of hooves. He headed away from town, not toward it, leaving Jenny to stand and stare after him. Tears tracked down her cheeks, guilt swamping her. This wouldn't have happened if she hadn't insisted Martha go for a walk with her. Yet, even as she wept, fearing for her best friend, new anger rose within her breast. Curse you, Harold, she sobbed. Using her anger to halt her tears, she began to think. I have to find her before he hurts her. Wiping her streaming face and eyes on her sleeves, Jenny gazed in the direction Harold had ridden, taking Martha with him. Down that road were scattered farms and small ranches, but it eventually led southward toward Richmond. Why did you go that way? She muttered, frowning. Suspecting Harold borrowed the horse, as he and Martha did not own one, Jenny didn't think he planned to go all the way to Richmond. It was more than 50 miles away. She didn't know if he had family he might go to, but she also didn't think he would leave town. He had a house and a job here, after all. Walking down the road, hurrying now, Jenny followed after them. Hoping he had stopped a short distance away, perhaps once he was out of her sight, Jenny walked as fast as she could. She had only a couple of hours until night fell. An hour passed, making her think she had gone a couple of miles, but she saw no sign of them. Nor did she see a helpful farmer who might have seen them, or a passing horseman who might say, "Sure, they made a left down there." Naturally, she had no idea on how to track them on a hard-packed road. Why aren't there any helpful Indian trackers around when you need one? She muttered. Her feet grew terrible, painful blisters, and the sun sank unhelpfully into the west. Now she grew more frantic, running, shouting Martha's name. The darkness around her grew complete, only the stars above offered her any illumination at all. There was no moon. Nor were there distant lights that may have marked a farm or ranch house, or people. Not far away, coyotes yapped from the darkness. Jenny shivered at the sound. She knew coyotes seldom attacked people, but they were capable of it. Deciding that she would never find them in the dark, Jenny turned around to walk back toward town. At least, she hoped town was in the direction she faced. In the complete darkness, she could easily have turned herself around and walked in the wrong direction. Chapter 12. The 3-day train ride stretched out agonizingly for Wesley. He resented every stop along the route, the stops for water and fuel, to deliver mail, to drop off passengers and add others. He got off as often as he could to stretch his legs, eat the food he brought with him, engage in a friendly game of cards with some cowboys, and try to sleep when he could. But every time he slept, he dreamed of Jenny. Not the good dreams he once had of her, of Jenny laughing, smiling, tickling his nose with the end of her braid. No, these dreams were of Jenny screaming, of Jenny dead, of Jenny horribly mutilated. He never failed to wake with a start, sweat streaming down the sides of his face. Though he knew his dreams were not prophetic, he fretted and fumed with every delay, feeling more and more certain that Jenny was in terrible danger. You should try to sleep. Wesley glanced at the stout matron sitting across from him, busy knitting even though it was close to 3 in the morning. I can't, he said. Why aren't you? She smiled broadly, though she clearly had 2 missing teeth. I can never sleep on a train. All the noise, the motion. But I don't have far to go, young man. Where are you bound? Tidewater, Virginia. Nice enough town, I suppose, she said, her needles clicking. I was there for a few years. A long time ago. Do you live there? Wesley shook his head. My bride is in that town. We are to be married, but her friend is in trouble and she won't leave. The needles stopped. What sort of trouble? Wesley explained about finding Jenny through the mail-order bride agency, about their long correspondence, and about Martha and her abusive husband. He told her of Jenny's most recent letter, of how badly Martha had been hurt. The woman nodded knowingly. Some men think with their fists, she said. My first husband was a drunk. Would beat me often, he did. Until the day he was so drunk he mistook the old well for the outhouse. Fell in and broke his neck, silly man. Somehow I don't think this one will have any tidy accidents, Wesley said, his tone dry. I just hope I can get Jenny out of there before he hurts her. And what of her friend? Helpless, Wesley shrugged. I can't save the world. Sure, you can. The woman gave him the gap-toothed but sweet smile again. Just ride in and save them both. Unable to figure out how he could possibly do that, Wesley tried to get some sleep. He managed a few hours without the nightmares, and when he woke at dawn, the woman and her knitting were gone. Yawning, he stretched and dug into his bag for some biscuits. Sharing them with a couple of small children across the aisle, he found out from the porter that the train would arrive in Tidewater around noon. His anticipation rising that he would at last meet his new bride, Wesley threw his saddlebags over his shoulder as the train, blowing its shrill whistle, chugged its way into Tidewater. He jumped down and collected his canvas satchel from the porter. Trying to be courteous, he pushed his way through the crowd on the train platform and went into the station office. Where might I find the sheriff? He asked the busy station master behind the counter. Out the door, the man replied, hardly looking up from his papers. Turn left. Down about 3 blocks on the right. Wesley tipped his hat. Thank you kindly. He started to walk out the door, hesitated, and turned back. I don't suppose you happen to know Miss Jenny Marlowe, do you? The man lifted his head and peered suspiciously at Wesley over his spectacles. He looked him up and down, and said, Why, yes I do. Why are you asking about her? Do you know where she lives? Now why would I offer that kind of information to a stranger fresh off the train? I'm her fiancé. The man's jaw dropped. You're Wesley Pike. Sweetwater, Arkansas? Wesley grinned. The very same. Her letters informed me her good friend is in trouble, and I came to take Jenny home with me. The man stuck out his hand, grinning broadly. A fine pleasure to meet you, sir. I am John Jared. Your Miss Marlowe is a fine woman, a very fine woman, and I am quite fond of her. So you know where she lives? Mr. Jared's face went slack. I do not. But as you are already asking where Sheriff Miller is, he can take you. So, Wesley began, you have heard of the trouble at the Andrews home? Removing his spectacles, Mr. Jared scrubbed his face with his hand. Yes, I am aware of it, young man, he said. So, get your little miss out of that place and into Arkansas. Wesley tipped his hat again. I will, sir. Much obliged. He headed for the door, and Mr. Jared called after him, but she's not allowed to leave without saying goodbye. Grinning over his shoulder, Wesley nodded. I promise you that. Fortunately, Wesley found the sheriff in his office, at his desk. The man glanced up from his work as Wesley opened the door and walked in. Help you? I hope so, Wesley replied. My name is Wesley Pike. What can I do for you, Mr. Pike? I need to find my fiancée, Wesley said. I fear she is in serious trouble with one of your townsfolk. What is your fiancée's name? The sheriff sat back in his chair, eyeing him as though he suspected Wesley of some malfeasance. Jenny Marlowe. She's staying with Mr. and Mrs. Andrews. When the sheriff gave a start and relaxed his features, Wesley said, I asked Bill Townsend in Sweetwater, Arkansas, to why are you asking after her? Ah, I thought the name seemed familiar, the sheriff replied, inviting him to take a chair. Your young lady is an acquaintance of mine. I'm Jack Miller. Wesley removed his hat and accepted the chair. Is she all right? As far as I know, Miller replied. Things have been fairly quiet at the Andrews place since I set Harold loose. I do have a few hopes he has mended his ways, but I'm sure they're temporary. Meaning he will start hitting Martha again. I'm afraid so. You came to take Jenny back with you? If I can without tying her hand and foot, Wesley replied. She doesn't want to leave here, for if she does, she thinks this Andrews fellow will kill his wife. Sheriff Miller nodded agreement. I am afraid that is a possibility, Mr. Pike. Andrews is a mean one. Used to keep his head down and his fists to himself. Then the liquor got to him, and, well, I am trying to do what I can. I just hope I don't have to arrest him for killing Mrs. Andrews. I hope and pray there's a solution before that comes about. Can you take me to where they live, Sheriff? Wesley asked. I'd really like to see Jenny. Of course. Sheriff Miller stood up and gestured toward Wesley's bags. You can leave those here for the time being, if you'd like. Excitement lit Wesley's belly as the two of them walked toward the Andrews home. I am finally going to meet her. If I have to bring Martha home with us, then so be it. As they walked, Sheriff Miller told him what he knew of the Andrews home life. As I said, Harold used to be a decent enough fellow, he explained, nodding to people they passed on the street. They married about a year ago, I'm told. He was heavy-handed when he'd drink, would smack Martha around a little. Until lately. What changed? Miller eyed him. Your Jenny moved in. Wesley nodded, understanding. She interfered with his wife. I think so, yes. Harold might have seen it as an encroachment on his territory, I don't know. But he got vicious mean, and I don't see him going back to being only a little mean. The liquor got to him, and that don't let go once it has a man in its clutches. The Andrews home turned out to be a small house on a corner with a neat lawn, but when Miller knocked on the front door, no one answered. Miller frowned. That's odd. Why? Miss Marlowe told me that Harold never lets Martha out of the house without him. He should be at work at the sawmill, so the girls should be here. Wesley peered in through the window as Miller knocked again and called for Mrs. Andrews through the door. He saw no movement inside the neat and tidy home, and no one arrived to see who had come to visit. His previous excitement gave way to dread. "What now?" he asked. "We can try the sawmill," Sheriff Miller replied, also peering in through the window. "See what Harold has to say." Wesley's dread turned to fear when the two of them were told that Harold no longer worked there. "He's done fired," said the supervisor, annoyed. He spat a wad of tobacco to the side. "Quit showing up regular, often came in drunk. I done told him not to come back. I got plenty of good men who need jobs. Don't need him." "Could he be in the saloon?" Wesley asked as they walked from the sawmill. Sheriff Miller shook his head. "Nope. We walked past it, and I glanced in. Didn't see him." "Then where in tarnation can he be?" Wesley asked, fear etching its way down his spine. "And where are Jenny and Martha?" Chapter 13. Her feet in agony, Jenny limped her way through the darkness. Exhausted, she craved to sit down and rest, but her fear drove her onward. Fear that even now Martha lay dead somewhere out here. Panic nibbled the edges of her mind as she thought that she passed Martha already, that her friend lay in a ravine nearby, injured and helpless. Dying. Or dead. Harold could easily have killed her the moment he rode out of her sight, tossed Martha's corpse aside like a piece of garbage, then galloped on to Richmond to start a new life. And Jenny would walk right by in the dark and never know. "Please don't let her be dead, Lord. Help her. Help me." Fearing the pack of coyotes were following her, Jenny heard them yipping not far behind. She dared not stop, dared not take a few moments to rest. She had no idea how far away town was, and she still worried she walked in the wrong direction. Having never learned to guide herself by the stars, Jenny fretted she was walking nowhere. For she did realize that it was long past midnight, and she should have returned to town by now. At long last, Jenny passed buildings and sheds, marking the edge of town. Breathing a gust of relief, for at least the coyotes would not follow her into a populated place. Or so she hoped. Street lamps pushed the darkness back, and she stumbled her way down the street, and found Harold and Martha's house dark and silent. Dear Lord, no. Grief and tears overwhelmed her. They weren't there. Harold had murdered her best friend and decamped for greener pastures. She ran up the steps and burst into the house, sobbing. "Martha! Martha!" Stumbling through the dark house, Jenny almost knocked a lamp over as she reached for it. With trembling hands, she found matches and lit it, her tears all but blinding her. Sobs choked her throat as she picked it up, tripping over her own feet as she made her way to the kitchen. In shock, she almost dropped the lamp. Harold grinned at her. His eyes gleamed red in the lamplight, his teeth floating in the dark as though hanging in the air without anything holding them up. A nearly empty whiskey bottle sat on the table. Martha sat, visibly trembling, in a chair, tears falling in a steady stream from her eyes. From her swollen cheeks, Jenny guessed she had been crying for hours. She was alive. Only then did Jenny's eyes find the glitter of a knife at Martha's throat. "Hello, Jenny," Harold said, his words slurred. "I figured you'd come back." "Harold," Jenny said, her tone carefully neutral. "What are you doing? You don't want to hurt Martha, do you?" "Martha," he said, blinking owlishly. "Had to punish Martha, she was a bad Martha." "No, it was me, Harold," Jenny said, setting the lamp carefully down on the counter. "I told Martha to go for a walk with me. It was my fault, not hers. Punish me, not her." "No, Jenny," Martha moaned. "Yes, Harold. It was me who made her go. She didn't want to, but I made her." Harold continued to grin, staring at her, the knife's razor edge tickling the pulsing vein at Martha's throat. Martha moaned again, closing her eyes as though not wishing to see the end. Jenny kept her gaze fixed on Harold, ready to move fast if he lunged at her. But how could she possibly move faster than a demented man with a knife? Put the knife down. If you hurt her, you will go to jail. Do you want that? I don't care, he mumbled, his hand on the shaft of the blade trembling almost as much as Martha. My Martha. He smacked a wet kiss on her cheek, yet the edge of the blade nicked her skin and drew blood. Jenny stared at it, mesmerized even as her heart raced. How do I get her away from him? I have to turn his rage onto me, not her. Harold, she said, fighting to keep her voice calm. I'm the one you're really mad at. Martha loves you, and you love Martha. Right? Harold's eyes ceased their slow blinking and intensified on her, focused on her, and sweat trickled down her ribs. Kill me, Harold, she went on, wondering if she could outrun him if he lunged at her. He's drunk, it might slow him down. Kill me, not your wife who loves you. Jenny, stop. Jenny ignored Martha and tensed herself, ready to bolt or jump to the side. Harold's gaze, like a hawk's on a mouse at lunchtime, narrowed and inspiration suddenly struck her. Harold, she said, making her tone anxious, urgent. Sheriff Miller is on his way to arrest you. If you want to escape, you better run now. What? Harold's eyes dropped that intense focus and grew round, flickering past her shoulder to the front room. Sheriff? Yes. Jenny dared risk taking her eyes off of him and glanced over her shoulder at the door. Yes, he knows what you did. He's coming and says you won't ever leave jail again. I'll cover for you, I'll tell him you rode to Richmond. Go, hurry. Unbelievably, Harold lowered the knife and stood up. Shambling, alarmed, stumbling, he left the kitchen, the knife still in his hand. Jenny seized Martha's arm and dragged her from the kitchen. As Harold turned, almost falling, Jenny bolted for her tiny room. Behind them, Harold bellowed like an angry bull and charged after them. Yanking Martha into the bedroom, Jenny slammed the door shut in Harold's furious face. Quick, we have to barricade it, we can't let him in. Harold continued to roar, hammering on the stout door with his fists. But turning the handle and opening it seemed beyond his capabilities in his drunken state, and for that Jenny blessed her luck. As Martha dragged the bed across the small room, she and Jenny shoved it against the door. Leaning all her weight against the stout oak door to help hold it shut, Jenny listened in terror as Harold screamed on the other side. Open this door. I will slice both your throats, so help me God, I will. I'm going to kill both of you, I swear it. Nothing is going to stop me. Shaking, Jenny listened as Harold ceased pounding, but his threats to kill them both continued. Now the bureau, she said, leaving the door long enough to help Martha pull the heavy thing and shove it onto the bed. Put the lamp on the floor. With Harold still howling, they stacked all of Jenny's boxes on top of the bureau, blocking the way into the room. When Harold finally tried to shove his way in, the door failed to budge. Martha burst into fresh sobs and clutched Jenny close. But they were safe, for the moment. Oh, dear Lord, I thought he was going to kill me. Me, too, Jenny gasped, finally sliding down the wall to sit on the floor. She held Martha in her arms, feeling too tense for full relief at both of them escaping with their lives, not fully appreciating that Martha did not lie dead in the wilderness. At last Harold gave up his pounding on the door and cursing, and Jenny listened to him stumbling back into the kitchen, knocking into things as he did so. Only then did her adrenaline rush subside and she collapsed into her own tears. Oh, she cried, gripping Martha so tightly the other girl squeaked. I thought he had killed you. He was going to, Martha said, her voice hoarse. I don't know why he didn't. The two of them wept on each other's shoulders, crying out their fears, finding comfort and relief within one another's arms. After a while, Jenny wiped her face and made Martha sit up straight. Though the room was fully dark, Jenny knew every inch of it. She realized they were now trapped. The room, which had been fashioned in the back corner of the house, had no window, and Harold stood between them and escape. We outwitted him for the moment, Jenny said, standing. She bent her ear to the bare wall and listened intently. She heard Harold muttering to himself and knew he hadn't passed out. But we also can't stay in here for long. What are you thinking? If he passes out or goes to sleep, Jenny said, thinking hard, we can sneak past him and run for the sheriff. But what if he doesn't? Martha fumbled for and grasped Jenny's hand. Too much alcohol doesn't always knock him out. And we got him angry, Jenny admitted, biting her lip. He will know that's what we're waiting for. So, he might pretend to pass out, Martha said. Then attack when we try to go by. He still has the knife, too. We need a weapon. Jenny nodded. Martha squeezed Jenny's hand. I know it's stupid and foolish, she said, her voice low. But we mustn't kill him. He is my husband. I hope after this, you will agree to come with me to Arkansas. To Jenny's shock, Martha actually giggled. Although, the laughter was edged with hysteria. Yes, Jenny. I will leave him and go to Arkansas with you. About time. Jenny hugged her tight. Now let's see if we can find something to knock him out with. A leg from the bed, maybe. The lamp gave them much-needed illumination. However, the bed frame had been built to be sturdy, and without tools, they could not get a leg freed from it. Frustrated, Jenny groped her way through her personal possessions, trying to find something, anything, that might be used as a weapon. She found nothing. Taking a few moments to press her ear to the wall, she heard no sounds at all. Maybe he did fall asleep, she muttered. After all, he's drunk, and it's almost dawn. He's been up all night, surely he has passed out. What are you saying? Martha asked. That we should make a run for it? Nodding, Jenny went on. Listen, Martha, no one knows we're stuck in here. We could be in here for days with no food, no water. With Harold out there, we are stuck. Once he sobers up, he can break this door down. Our only chance is running while he's still too drunk to move quickly. Maybe we should wait, Martha said, hope filling her voice. Harold has to go to work soon. We'll wait until he leaves. Jenny forced herself to take a deep breath and keep her voice even. Martha, she said slowly. I don't think he will be going to work. He didn't yesterday. He spent his time drinking. We must not count on that. Her friend's face fell. You're right. I should have thought of that. Listening at the wall again, Jenny thought she heard snoring. At least she hoped she did, and that what she heard was not a product of her imagination. Help me take this stuff down. As silently as possible, she and Martha took the boxes down and set them aside, then took the heavy bureau down from the bed. After pushing the bed away from the door far enough to open it, and cringing with the noise it made, Jenny grabbed Martha's hand. Ready? Chapter 14. After a fruitless search for Jenny and Martha, or any signs of where Harold Andrews might have gone, Wesley gave up after night fell. The Andrews house remained dark and silent, no lamps shone light through the windows. Exhausted from little sleep over the last few days, he checked into the hotel and collapsed on the bed. Once again, he dreamed of Jenny, screaming, blood caking her head, coating her braid. Jerking himself awake, panting, Wesley sat up, wiping sweat from his brow. Where are you, Jenny? Talk to me, girl. Rising, he poured himself a glass of water and drank it, staring out the window. Dawn emerged pink on the horizon, the sun peeking out like a coy maid at her first barn dance with boys. After dressing, he sat in the chair and ate cold fare from his saddlebags. I have to find her. I know she's in trouble, I just know it. His gut in turmoil, Wesley had long listened to it, to his instincts telling him when something was horribly wrong. Harold and the two women missing from their home screamed trouble with strident voices. The man was a drunk, and Wesley had encountered enough men in his life who drank, then grew violent when their normal inhibitions were lowered. He feared that Harold, if he had been drinking the way Sheriff Miller suspected he might already have killed the women and decamped. Leaving his room, Wesley went down the stairs to the front door, small noises from the kitchen informing him that some of the staff prepared breakfast for the guests. The street outside, though the sun had risen, remained empty of townspeople this early. Thinking his first stop should be the Andrews house, Wesley wondered if Sheriff Miller would arrest him for entering the house uninvited. "I don't care," he muttered as he walked the distance to the house. "I'm going in for a look." The Andrews home still appeared peaceful and undisturbed as Wesley approached. His spirits sank as he considered the possibility that Harold had indeed killed the women and had long since fled the area. Needing to go into the house more than ever, Wesley steeled himself to find the corpses of Jenny and her friend Martha inside. Walking up the steps, Wesley heard the piercing scream of terror from within the house. Chapter 15. Hand in hand with Martha, Jenny edged her way through the door, peering down the short hallway. She did not see Harold, and suspected he was in either the kitchen or the front room. While they had been barricaded in her room, the sun had come up, making Jenny realize they had been in there longer than she thought. Wishing she had a weapon of any kind, she crept noiselessly toward the main part of the house. Passing Martha and Harold's bedroom, Jenny peeped inside, hoping to see him passed out on the bed. No such luck. Harold did not lay there, snoring, oblivious to their sneaking past him to escape the house and the danger he presented. Continuing further, her nerves stretched tightly, almost to the breaking point, Jenny searched with her eyes and ears, trying to locate Harold. She no longer heard snoring, if she ever did, and glanced into Martha's terrified eyes. "Where can he be?" she whispered. Martha shook her head. "Maybe he left to go to the saloon." Though that seemed plausible, given Harold's propensity to spend his time there, Jenny's instincts told her not to believe it. Harold wanted them dead, and the full light of day was not enough to stop him. Nor was the threat of going to prison or being hanged for murder. Peering into the kitchen, Jenny sucked in her breath. Harold was not there. Clutching Martha tightly to her, Jenny readied herself for a quick sprint across the front living room to the door. If he was there, waiting for them to make a run for it, Jenny hoped the alcohol in his body would slow him down. "Come on," she whispered, bracing herself. Martha suddenly screamed. Spinning, Jenny found Harold behind them, emerging from the concealment of their bedroom door. She had looked no further than the bed when they passed it, not knowing Harold lurked, hiding, waiting for them to come out. He raised the knife, grinning, his beady eyes red. With Martha between her and Harold, Jenny panicked. "Got you now," Harold snarled. The knife slashed downward. In a move Jenny never expected, Martha twisted her body and slammed herself against the wall. The wicked blade missed her by a fraction of an inch and gave Jenny the opening she needed. Half turning, she smashed the heel of her boot into Harold's knee. Yelling pain, he bent forward, the knife pointed down. Grabbing Martha, Jenny swung her friend out of the hall, screaming, "Get the sheriff! Run!" Not daring to take her eyes from Harold, Jenny distantly heard Martha running, and a sharp pounding. Someone yelled her name, but she ignored it, backing away as Harold straightened up, limping forward, and stalked her. He raised the knife again, his lips curled into a snarl. Knowing she should run, Jenny also knew that to turn her back on him meant her death. The blade slashed downward. Ready for it, Jenny lunged desperately to the side, avoiding it. It missed her, but Harold swiped again, this time sideways. Jenny felt it slice through her dress and across her belly. "I'm going to die." Instantly, Jenny found herself thrown violently to the floor. What the? Looking up, she saw a man fighting with Harold, gripping Harold's wrist to keep the knife up and away from him, punching him violently in the face. Bleeding from his nose and mouth, Harold retaliated with a wicked punch to the stranger's head, knocking him backward. The man stumbled, and Jenny scrambled away from them, hoping to not trip the stranger who had just saved her life. The man recovered faster than she expected, slamming his fist into Harold's face and gut, still keeping the deadly knife away from him. The whiskey Harold continually drank took its toll, and Harold stumbled, now trying to get away from his attacker. By throwing himself backward, Harold yanked his wrist from the other's grip, freeing the knife. With a wild yell, he slashed at the stranger, opening a deep cut on his upper arm. As though the knife had not touched him, the stranger drove himself forward, before Harold's arm could complete a return swing. Even as Harold's elbow cracked him alongside his head, the man took the punishment and gave it back tenfold. With fast, savage punches, the man pummeled Harold's face, knocking him to the floor. The knife spun from Harold's hand. Driving downward, he plunged his knee into Harold's gut, and forcing the wind from his lungs. Harold collapsed, gasping and vomiting, holding his belly with both hands. In a swift motion, the man flipped him onto his front, then knelt between Harold's shoulder blades. Panting, he held his hand over his arm wound, then, oddly, grinned at Jenny. "Hello, Jenny," he said. Astounded, Jenny met the stranger's eyes. Who are you?" "Oh, come now," he said, amused. "After all this time you don't recognize me? Wesley?" At his chuckle, Jenny screamed with joy, and flung herself into Wesley's arms. "Oh, Wes, my Wesley, you're here, you are here." Holding her tight, even as Harold writhed under them still trying to breathe, Wesley laughed in her ear. "Of course, I came, my sweet Jenny. I had to. You wouldn't come to me, so I had to come here to take you home." Laughing, weeping, Jenny wrapped her arms around his neck, unable to stop saying his name over and over. He made soothing shushing sounds, calming her, whispering his love for her into her ear. She had no idea how long they held each other as Harold finally fell unconscious. At last raising her face from his neck, Jenny gazed into Wesley's eyes. "I love you," she whispered. Tilting his head, Wesley kissed her tenderly, his mouth feeling perfect on hers. "I love you, too." Glancing down, Jenny fingered the rip in his bloody sleeve and remembered he had been cut. "You're hurt." His eyes looked down. "So are you." Only then did Jenny realize that Harold's wicked slash had opened a shallow cut across her stomach. It hardly hurt. "I'll be all right." "Where's Martha?" "Martha? Martha?" "I'm here, Jenny. I'm all right." Martha's voice came from behind Jenny. Jenny turned her head and saw Martha cowering against the wall. Jenny's eyes filled with tears. "You're all right then? Truly all right?" "Truly all right." With his hands on her, Wesley helped Jenny to stand. "I don't think this old boy is going anywhere," he said, rising from Harold's inert body. But he bent to pick up the knife and toss it well away from Harold in case he woke up. His good arm over Jenny's shoulders, he walked her away just as Sheriff Miller burst into the house, his gun drawn. Seeing Harold unconscious and both Jenny and Wesley upright and relatively unharmed, he pushed his hat back on his head. Then he glanced at Martha, who was following them. "I reckon I'm a bit late," he commented. Jenny buried her face in Wesley's shoulder, trembling with the after effects of nearly being killed. "He tried to murder Martha and me," she said, her voice muffled. "So he'll go to jail for a while. Long enough for you two, and Mrs. Andrews, to get to Arkansas, and stay there. Harold will never know where his wife went." They watched Miller handcuff Harold. Wesley led Jenny and Martha from the house, and Jenny murmured, "Martha never told Harold where you lived. You will let her live with us for a while, won't you?" "I wouldn't have it any other way," Wesley answered. Epilogue. 6 months later. Holding her swollen belly, Jenny waddled across the kitchen toward the table. Heaving a sigh, she sat in the chair, and watched as Martha rolled out dough for an apple pie. Since Jenny had grown so heavily pregnant, Martha insisted upon taking the majority of the household's cooking and chores upon herself. "Are you going to the dance with Roger on Saturday?" Jenny asked. Martha nodded without looking up. "Yes. He's such a sweet man. I can't believe I've fallen in love with him so fast. Well, I never thought I'd even want to fall in love again." Caressing her stomach, and the baby within it, Jenny felt dismay. "But you can't marry him until you're free from Harold." Pausing, her arms covered to her elbows in flour, Martha turned. Roger says that he will marry me if I can get a divorce from Harold. I'm thinking to see a lawyer about it. Well, you certainly have cause, Jenny replied. No judge will insist you remain married to a man who tried to kill you. I hope not. Hearing horses' hooves outside the ranch house's kitchen, both Jenny and Martha glanced toward the kitchen door. Through the window, they both saw Jenny's husband, Wesley, dismount and tie his horse to the post. He got back from town quick, Jenny said. I hope nothing's wrong. As Wesley opened the door, his wide grin brought relief. I have a surprise, he said. But rather than approach Jenny, Wesley went to Martha, pulling something from his pocket. His grin faded. I hope this does not distress you, he said. It's a telegram. For me? Martha wiped her hands on a damp towel, then tentatively reached for it. Wesley gave her the telegram, then stepped back and rested his hand on Jenny's shoulder. As Martha read, her free hand covered her mouth. Tears filled her eyes and dripped down her cheeks. Anxiety filled Jenny. Martha? What is it? What's wrong? Martha finally looked up. It's from Sheriff Miller back home. Harold was released from prison last week. Knowing that his sentence for trying to murder the two of them was 6 months, Jenny nodded. So why the tears? Martha swallowed, using her shoulder to wipe the tears from her face. He was killed. In a saloon brawl. Oh, my lord. Crumpling the paper, Martha took a deep breath and gazed across the room, her eyes distant. Even though he never loved me, she said slowly, he was my husband. I should feel grief. But, well, I don't. Of course, you don't, Jenny cried. Not after what he did to you. And what he did to you, Martha added. She frowned slightly and looked down at her clasped hands. I'll pray for his soul, she said. Jenny went to her and put her arm around her waist. Everything's all right, now, Martha. I'm happy for you. A tentative smile crossed Martha's face. Oh, Jenny. I'm free. I'm free now. Jenny smiled. Yes, Martha, you're free. Wesley came over to them both. He looked into Jenny's eyes and smiled. A new beginning for all of us, now. Jenny nodded. Yes. For all of us now. The end. Thank you for listening to this heartwarming story by Susanna Calloway. You can be assured that all her books are clean and wholesome. To find other romances by Susanna Calloway, as well as the other authors at Tika House Publishing, visit www.tikahousepublishing.com. Remember to hit like and subscribe, and we will see you in the next Susanna Calloway Western romance.